Good morning, everyone.
There you go.
That's much better. That's much better. This session, we're going to cover transforming your content solutions or content experiences in the era of AI and Copilot. And I'm Sesha Mani. I'm the Partner Group Product Manager at Microsoft. Been with Microsoft for about 16 plus years now, especially with SharePoint for about 13 years now. Since the day of SharePoint 2010 on premises. How many of you have used SharePoint 2010 on premises? Wow, hello friends. And in that version is when we introduced the most secure claims authentication product. Not sure how many of you remember. If you hate it, you can blame it on me. But I can tell you, that's what laid the foundation for all the Office 365 services that we actually are able to build now, because Office 365 is now a suite of product, not just SharePoint, right? Anyway, that's a little bit history about me. Today, I'm having with me Vijay Sharma and Mohit, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, my name is Vijay Sharma. I'm a PM manager in the SharePoint team. I have been at Microsoft for a long time, since the SharePoint 2007. I'm not sure.
He's VP to it.
Yeah, long time. So yeah, I kind of seen this product evolve, and so yeah, on new journeys now.
Awesome. Thanks, Vijay. Mohit?
Hey, thanks, Sesha. Hey, hi, everyone. My name is Mohit Chand. I'm the Group Engineering Manager in Microsoft Digital. I've been with Microsoft over 20 years now, so I've seen all stages of SharePoint pretty much. And my group actually works on implementing and building enterprise solutions that Microsoft runs on. So later today, I'm going to talk about how we use the agreement solution, part of what we're going to talk about in details later.
Awesome. Thank you. Right, let's dive in. So the agenda-wise, we're going to talk about framing what is SharePoint content solutions. And then we will get right into agreements solution. That's our first content solutions coming off of SharePoint. And we're going to walk you through the end-to-end of the agreement solution so that you get a full picture of what is the solution and how perhaps you can take advantage of it as well. Then we'll get into, Mohit is here from our Microsoft Digital Global Contracting Office, and he's going to share with us how internally Microsoft is actually using that agreement solution. I'll share with you the roadmap. Also, we have a preview starting as announced yesterday. So you're welcome to sign up for that as well. With that, let me get into the framing of what is content solutions. So as we just talked about, many of us have been with SharePoint for many, many years now. And you know that it empowers mainly the collaboration across users, be it within among internal users or with the external suppliers and partners. Communication with your employees and bringing more engagement from your employees, as well as in terms of enriching, having enriched, branded, rich intranet sites and pages, as well as at the end, to put it all together, an unified content management. So it is underpinning all Microsoft 365 services. As we showed you at Keynote and the OneDrive SharePoint Keynote session as well, SharePoint is the flexible content management platform that helps power all the Microsoft 365 apps, be it Loop, Teams, Microsoft Teams, Viva Engage, Stream is built on top of SharePoint, you name it. And these are the main reason for that is the security and compliance promises that SharePoint is able to bring forward to these applications. So agreement solution, which we're going to talk about it today, is one of the reasons why it is built on top of SharePoint as well. Then we look at around 2 billion plus new files are getting added to SharePoint every day. 2 billion plus files. Just think about that for a minute. That's how much scale that we can handle, how much processing we can do in the SharePoint online services today. And it is one of the places where we expect to continue to grow. Like next year I'm here, I'm sure it's going to be bigger than this number for sure, right? Next one is around what are the type of this document we are seeing? Well, As I mentioned, internal collaboration documents, perhaps for a project, you have a team of 5 or 6 people coming together and you want to create a project specification document, project reports, and so on. You want to collaborate. SharePoint is a place that you typically do that. Second, we talk about the reports and financial documents. For example, we announced the financial results, Amy Hood announced last week. And as you can imagine, behind the scene, the team is using SharePoint in Microsoft 365 to actually prepare for that quarterly release as well. But last but not least, pertaining to this session is what we call the business transaction documents, or high-value business transaction documents. So for example, if Microsoft is doing a contract with another vendor, let's say, for example, Contoso, then there is a process in between the companies we go through in order to create that agreement, right? What are the SLAs, service level agreement, going to be? What are the terms and conditions need to be as part of the contract? So as we have built, and we believe we have a really good story on the internal collaboration documents, all sort of other documents, we believe that it's the right time now that SharePoint also become the place for high-value documents too. And also with the strong foundation for the last 3 years, specifically my team has been driving all the security and compliance initiatives in the SharePoint product. We believe that it's the right time now to bring even for high-value documents as well into SharePoint. So with that, let me actually, high-value documents cut across many different, right? Across your non-disclosure agreements, perhaps even at the personal level. How many of you have signed a mortgage agreement for your house, right? Such a pretty common scenario. But then the question is, if you ask yourself, where are those documents today? Do you know? Right? We don't know. But such a big high-value document that we have signed. The same situation in organizations as well. If you ask any of your organization IT person, then they'll say, wow, it's in multiple places. I don't know where all of them are. So part of the reason is because there are multiple siloed departments. They take care of their own business processes, and hence the document is also growing or kept in a siloed storage as well. But we believe with SharePoint and Microsoft 365, we can help you bring it all together in one single location, which is in the SharePoint and the Microsoft 365, and by which you can get much richer experiences, which we will show you as well. So that leads to our advanced content management. We announced SharePoint Premium at last Ignite, and we also shared with you how it helps you to simplify your daily business processes by infusing intelligence into these processes. For example, the very first pillar here is enriching and maximizing value of your content with our AI-powered processing capabilities. How many of you were yesterday's OneDrive and SharePoint keynote? Myself, Zach, and Melissa, and Lincoln, and Ashu were talking about this. These are capabilities are core for an enterprise content management product. We are now bringing them as mainstream capabilities. Let me give you one simple example. OCR. So today, if you go to SharePoint and Microsoft 365, you can search for content. But then the results are going to come back just the Word document or PowerPoint or Excel files and so on. But with the OCR technology, we are able to now extract an image or perhaps multiple images in a PDF document as a text. We extract it as a text. So that if you now search after the OCR is enabled, you will get back even images that has the text actually embedded in it as well. It is such a powerful, powerful capability we are bringing as part of the AI-powered processing. Just imagine, just to give you to put it in perspective, roughly about 20 to 30% of overall content in a typical organization is either a PDF embedded with images, or you have AutoCAD images, you name it. That aspect of the file types is what we have noticed. So we believe it's really going to be helpful for you to get a 100% view of all the content you have in your tenancy. The next pillar is building on top of these capabilities, our content-driven solutions. And this is what we are going to focus on in this session. So what do we mean by content-driven solutions? These are the end-to-end solution, all the way from how the user can create a simple agreement using an enterprise template. Because every organization has a template for here is how the SOW, statement of work, looks like. Here is how NDA, non-disclosure agreement, looks like for your enterprise. So users should be able to access those templates and create these agreements. Not only that, you need to have approvers. Who's the approver for this agreement? They need to be able to review and approve it. Then next step is to be able to e-sign it as well. So the whole end-to-end, not just end user. Think about it if you are a person working at CELA, legal department, and you are the business owner. You need to be able to see all the agreements that are happening in your organization, in your department that you're responsible for in one place, right? And then think about it as a SharePoint admin. How many of you are SharePoint admins here? Yeah? Okay. How many of you know what are all the legal department sites that you are managing? Okay, one hand. One hand. That's the situation today. Well, because probably they are not in SharePoint today, most likely, or you just don't have that visibility, right? Well, why do you care those sites are there? Think about it for a minute. Those are your bread and butter of your business. Whatever your organization does, that's the bread and butter of your business. Meaning, these are the high-value business transaction documents. Don't you want to protect it and also be compliant with those documents, right? That's what we are going to help you with. We're going to give you, as a SharePoint admin, visibility into those sites that keep or that carry that high-value documents so that you, as the administrator, ensure right set of policies are configured for those, as well as you can monitor them, what's happening in those sites, right? If there is an oversharing happens or exposure of that content happens, you will be notified and take actions on them. The last pillar, what I just talked about, is about managing your content, having a deep insights and advanced controls. Because the moment you have these visibility about your high-value document sites, then you can take actions on them. You can monitor them. We'll provide you advanced policies. Make sure only the legal department people can access those sites, right? Now you can go back to your CIOs or CTOs and convince them, look, if you bring in all those capabilities, all those documents into SharePoint and Microsoft 365, I can ensure to you, here are all the compliance we can check mark, plus the security protections we always get. Okay? So with that framing, I'm going to turn it over to Vijay to walk us through the end-to-end of the agreement solution. Thanks, Vijay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Sesha. Well, my name is Vijay. Before I start, let me ask you a question. How many of you remember signing your last employment offer agreement? Just raise your hand if you remember that. Well, a lot of folks. Well, that was a very important document because that was a foundation which the payroll department used to issue you your first paycheck and then the paycheck after that. Now, there's a lot of things goes behind the scene in creating these documents, these agreements. And businesses have like lots and lots of agreements. Most big businesses, they create over 1 million new agreements every single year. And they can range from as simple as the employment offer agreement that you signed, or it could be a purchase agreement that you did. For example, if you're buying an equipment from some other company, you need to have an agreement in place. Or if you are selling some solution to somebody else, or selling anything to other parties, you need to have an agreement in place. Every business transaction involves agreements. These are the foundation of every business transaction. So every business does lots and lots of agreements every single year. You may be involved directly in these agreements, or you may not be involved, but there are departments, every single department in your organization are doing agreements. So now let's look at essentially why these documents are so important. Well, because these documents carry monetary value. For example, if you're doing a M&A agreement, that agreement outlines the dollar value that you're going to pay for buying that company. And so these agreements are essentially have monetary value. They're also legally binding. So for example, if you have a non-disclosure agreement, then, and if there's a breach of agreement, well, you can take them to court, and these are admissible in court. And lastly, these documents, these agreements, you need to keep them as record for like 5, 10, 20, 50. I was talking to a customer recently, and they work in construction business. Anybody in construction here? Oh, perfect. Yeah. So I think they told me that they need to keep these agreements for like 50 years, sometimes even 100 years, especially when you're doing like government construction work. So these, you need to keep them as record for like long time. So that's why these documents are so important for a business. So now let's look at an example of an agreement, what an agreement looks like. So agreement typically has a first party, second party, the parties involved in that agreement. There's a start date. There's also an end date. There are clauses, or we call snippets or clauses in an agreement, and there could be many clauses. Sometimes these agreements are really long, like 100-page long, and there may be several clauses in these agreements. And then also, these agreements may have e-signature. Most likely these agreements have e-signature, but in case there are proposals, they may not have an e-signature, but most agreements have e-signature in there. So you have like first party signing the agreement, second party signing the agreement. So this is what constitutes an agreement. So now let's look at some of essentially the current processes that most businesses are doing today, how they are essentially building these agreements. So what they do typically have a Word document that they use as a template, and they have these placeholder fields. Like for example, these things highlighted in yellow over here, they use that, hey, you make a copy of this agreement, this kind of template, I would call this as a legacy template, make a copy of that, and then modify things, and that's how you create a new agreement. And for any agreement that you create, you follow this process of essentially copying the template and then modifying a few things in there, and then that's how you start drafting your agreement. And so this works okay if you're a small organization, but if you're a big organization, this could make it very complex, because I may download a copy locally and use this template locally, and then I may start using it, but that template may change in the background. For example, here I have a small change in one of the clauses. For example, I just changed a simple word in this ownership clause or this anti-compete clause, where previously I require, if I'm hiring a vendor and then I'm essentially asking them to work for me for some time, I may require them to essentially not work for my competitor for like at least 1 year. And this was in my contract, in my template before. I changed it to 2 years. Now I have two copies of this template. I have an old template and I have a new template. Now, some people have the old copy of the template on their desktop, and they're still building agreements using that old template, and they're issuing agreements to other people using that 1 year term, while some people are using 2 year term. So you can see this, there may be discrepancies in your agreements, even within your own organization. There could be even more problems. So agreements are not simple. So if, for example, if I am Daisy and I want to hire Carlos as a essentially vendor. For example, let's take this conference. So in this conference, outside you see those signs, and somebody here must have essentially hired somebody to essentially build those signs, and there must be an agreement in place. So for example, I want to hire Carlos for kind of in building that signs, all the kind of cool signs you see outside. I cannot just send this agreement directly to Carlos. I had to involve first my legal team, make sure that I have the agreement essentially meets my company standard. They review the agreement. I also need to have somebody approve the agreement. Somebody higher up who has the budget, everything. Somebody who's like in a good position, they can kind of review the agreement. Yep, I think it's approved. All the dollar values looks okay, and they approve it. And then finally can go to the vendor to sign the agreement. So you can see there's a workflow and processes involved in these agreements. So overall, there are several challenges in this space. This agreement process may take weeks for simple agreements, up to 9 weeks on average, but for complex agreements, it can take much longer, even months, from draft to actually signing the agreement. Now, this could lead to a lot of challenges. I mean, you could lose business. For example, that M&A deal that I was talking about, if it's taking, you may have a verbal agreement, but if it's taking a long time for the agreement to be signed, from draft to like review to approval to signing, you may lose that business, or you may actually, the other party may change their mind. Or if you are selling an equipment to somebody else and the agreement is not in place, they may change their mind. So you can lose business if that agreement process takes a long time in your organization. There also is other problems. For example, you may have information silos, and in large organizations, Each department have their own processes. For example, the HR department may follow their own process for agreements, the marketing department may follow their own process, procurement may own their own process, and they may be kind of storing their agreements in different places. And so if you want to get a legal view of all your agreements in your organization, well, good luck with that. Because, for example, I mean, you got sued by Contoso, and you need to find out where all my agreements that are done by Contoso in all my departments. It's impossible to essentially find all those agreements and get the legal view that you have with other company. So there are a lot of challenges in this space. So let's look at essentially how we can use AI, the power of AI, to put some structure and then solve all those problems that we kind of talked before here. So with that, I'm going to quickly talk about an end-to-end solution that's built on top of SharePoint that helps you manage the entire life cycle of your agreements, starting with template creation. So you can convert your legacy templates into modern templates that are smart. Then you can essentially have a central place where users can go in and create their agreements. They can find all those templates that you published. Then you can have rich review and negotiation process infused with AI. And you can also sign your agreements in the same kind of process where you build your agreements without essentially having to integrate with third-party system to essentially build your, to sign your agreements. And last is essentially reporting. So you can get insights into all your agreements. And the problem I was talking before around, hey, I don't know where my agreements are. Now you can essentially find all your agreements in one place and you can reporting on top of these agreements. This is the end-to-end essentially solution for managing all your agreements. And this is backed by the security and compliance of Microsoft 365. In this entire process, all your documents remain in the Microsoft 365 cloud. They never leave the cloud. Even during the signing process, they are still within the Microsoft 365 cloud. All right, so what do you get with this solution? The first thing you get is a new app, agreements app, that's a central place for you to manage all your agreements. This is where you go to create new agreements, templates, and find all your agreements. That's a central place for you. And second thing you get is a native Word experience to author your agreements. And we give you a new agreements tab in Word. That's where you can essentially use to author and then build your agreements. So these are two experiences you get, and all of this is essentially built into SharePoint, Teams, and natively in Office products. All right, so now I will go deep into each of these areas and talk about what features you get with this whole end-to-end solution. So let's start with defining templates. So let me show how you create templates in this new solution. You simply go into Agreements app, and then you choose to create a new template. And you can choose if you are working in one particular department. For example, I'm in procurement. I can choose procurement. I can choose a type of template and provide some basic information like country and language. And now I'm in Word. And I can now convert my existing kind of legacy template into a modern template by simply adding fields. And these fields are not locally there. They're coming from a central fields library. So you can create your fields once and reuse into multiple templates. So here I'm essentially adding first party, second party, and start date as fields. These are some out-of-the-box fields that we provide. So you can start building your template by essentially simply converting that legacy template into a modern template. Now, we do provide some out-of-the-box fields, but you can also create your own fields in there. So you can simply go in there and essentially start adding custom fields in your template. For example, here, the first party address and second party address, I'm going to simply essentially create new fields because they don't exist today. And we provide a wide variety of, you can single line, multiple line, date. You can choose different types of fields depending on the content that you have. You can also essentially connect to a SharePoint list. For example, this second field, I want to get the supplier name or supplier address from a SharePoint list. So you can also connect this thing to a SharePoint list. So here I'm connecting to a SharePoint list where I can choose a list and then the column from the list that will be used to populate the values in this field. And you can now essentially also connect this list in the background using Power Automate to third-party systems like SAP, Salesforce, or any system that Power Automate supports. You can populate them, so now your data in your fields is coming from an authorized source, so you will not have any issues with people typing in wrong information in your fields. So you can build all this system. This is how you build your template. You can also specify the fields are required or not in the template. Now, one thing I talked about is essentially, I talked about one clause in your template where if you change that, then you don't know which templates are using that language, and you want to keep that language up to date. For example, California came with new privacy laws, and now you have to update all your templates with the new privacy language. Snippet library can help you essentially with that process. You can you can publish your snippets. So here I'm going to take an existing clause and then publish that clause into my snippet library so that I can use that clause into multiple templates, and I have that language coming from a central place. Somebody reviewed that language, published that language, somebody who's an expert in that area can publish that language, and now entire company can use language that's kind of authorized by somebody. So here I can essentially adding my, publishing my snippets, which also call clause. I can also make them, hey, I don't want people who are using the snippets, I don't want them to modify them. They can only have a read-only copy. Or I want to have like backup clauses also for these clauses. So I can build all the structure in there and publish my snippet in my snippet library. And now I can insert these snippets into my templates. So here I'm going to quickly show you how you insert your snippets into your template. You can just quickly essentially go in there, browse the templates. So I'm here, this NT-compete snippet that I published before. And now I can insert this snippet into my template. And now it's using a snippet from a snippet library and is using from an authorized source. All right, perfect. So we have so far essentially started building our template. We added fields, we added custom fields, we added snippets. And the other thing I talked about before is, hey, the agreements needs to go through a legal review process. Now, as a kind of an operations manager, you can also even configure who the reviewers are. So somebody who's creating these agreements, for example, I'm in sales and I want to create an agreement, I don't need to find who the person to review this agreement from legal. I can define in this system who the legal reviewers are for service agreements, for statement of work, things like that, who the reviewers are. I can define that. And then when anybody creates any agreements for statement of work or for service agreements, they automatically get routed to, in this case, Megan. All right, so let's do that quickly. So I configured my reviewers, and you can also configure who your approvers would be. For example, I'm building this template. I can also configure that, hey, anybody creating agreements from this template, it needs to get routed also to Mona for approvals. So I can configure all those things in my template, and once it's all configured, now your template essentially has now fields, snippets, it has workflow defined for review, it has workflow defined for approval, and the last stage is around signature, e-signature. Now this is also new. Now natively in Word, you can insert e-signature fields and place them in the right places, right in your template. You can define everything in your template where you can place where the e-signature fields should go, so that the users don't have to think through, okay, where do I place the e-signature field? Which pages does the e-signature fields needs to be? You can configure all those things in your template, so you have in full control of how the template will look like. So here I'm adding e-signature fields natively in Word by just dragging them, dropping them in my Word canvas for e-signature, the initials, and then date here. All right, so now my last stage is publishing this template. I quickly go and publish this template. Once I publish this template, people can start using this template to create new agreements. This template is an official template now, and people can start using this template for creating agreements. Now, this was a great process overall. Like, I spent some time kind of adding my fields and essentially putting my snippets in there and then workflow, things like that. But it may take a long time. This may take a long time. And in some businesses, it may take even months to kind of put this whole template together. Because you can see, if there's a 50-page, 100-page template, a lot of clauses in there and a lot of fields in there, somebody has to go in there and line by line and add those fields in there. Well, that's where the power of AI comes in. So let me show you the first magic over here. Here I can quickly go in there and then essentially choose an existing agreement, and then quickly choose a legacy template. And then essentially from there, I can use AI to automatically find all the fields in that template. It will help me find all the fields in the template, even if it's a long 50, 100-page document, it can find all the fields in there and give me a full list of all the fields it thinks should be in the template. And you can simply go that and review it and then approve it or edit it. This is going to simplify the template management process significantly, from like days or even months to like even sometimes hours. And a lot of businesses have like a lot of templates. So you can now start building these templates using this AI-based template creation. All right, so that's first AI feature I showed you there. Now my templates are published. Now let's show you the experience of how a user like me, who's in sales, how can I create agreements. So here I have essentially Daisy, who wants to create an agreement we talked before with Carlos. So she will simply go into the Agreements app, and then she can just choose to create a new agreement. She types in her kind of business line, her department, and she can provide information what type of template she's looking for, and the system is going to find the right template for her. She doesn't have to think. She doesn't have to download anything. Everything is in the system. Now she finds the right template, and now she's in Word. She can simply start entering the field values in the right pane. So it gives you a nice form experience right in Word to enter all the values in the field. And as she's entering the values, the document updates in real time. So you can see the changes updating in the document in real time. So she can see her kind of, agreement kind of building up as she kind of puts values in the agreement. Now you can also essentially modify, if you want to essentially change any clause, you can also modify the clause because you're writing Word. So you can change here, I'm simply changing one of the clauses. For example, when I was kind of looking to hire a vendor for building all the signs, there was this clause on the intellectual property ownership, and they had their own thing going on. So they said, my previous template had this thing where the company keeps all the IP, and they said, no, I think we have their own process. They wanted to have essentially co-ownership. So I kind of modified that particular clause, and now I'm done with my part. I'm going to simply send it for next next stage in the workflow. So it's going to next stage where essentially it's going to go for review. So Mona, since we kind of configured that in the beginning, hey, for all service agreements, Megan is going to be the legal reviewer for all these agreements. So she simply gets, she simply goes to the Agreements app, and then she can actually, what she does is she has a playbook. And I can assure you, every single one of you over here, in your company, in your legal department, you would have a playbook that defines how to essentially review documents, these legal documents. Because over the years, the company has kind of developed some legal standings, so the company has these rules that, hey, every agreement should have a privacy clause. Make sure in NDAs, the agreements are mutual. So you have a lot of these rules defining your playbook. So you can simply bring your rules and bring them into this solution. And once they are in there, when Megan from legal gets a new agreement to review, the first pass is done by the AI. So we convert all this thing into using AI to essentially apply these rules automatically on your agreements. So here, when Megan goes into this agreement she got for review, so she has to review an agreement, and she starts a review. The AI has done already a pass on that. It found kind of 20 things were good, but a couple of things were essentially did not meet the requirements. She can review those things, what were good, and she can look at things which are not good, and she can kind of go into that, reviewing the things which she needs to essentially, which are like problematic, she can go and review those places. That saves significant amount of time for reviewers, because this is where agreements get stuck for a long time. Somebody is reviewing that agreement for like days or weeks. Now you can do it within hours because AI has done an initial pass on the agreement. All right, so now she reviews the agreement. She said, okay, looks everything good. She approves it. It goes to the next stage, which is the person who is kind of, the owner of the budget. They need to finally approve. So it goes to Mona, who's essentially the approver for the agreement. And from there, she can simply gets an email. She opens the agreement. And since already been reviewed by legal, she again gets a nice experience in Word. She can also essentially use something called AI-based deviation analysis, which is a cool feature in Word that we're adding, where it can tell you all the changes that happen in the agreement and give you a summary of what is some of the big legal changes. remember I changed one kind of clause in the IP. I kind of had this as a co-ownership. Previously, it was only like one-sided ownership. It can give you, hey, there's a change in the agreement where one clause changed, and the previous it was like, a single-sided ownership, and that you own the IP, now it's like co-ownership, so there's a big legal change. All those few words change, it has big legal implication. So it can give you a summary. Now Mona understands that that particular vendor kind of needs that thing, so she's aware of that. She can simply approve it, and now the agreement is approved. And then last stage is essentially e-sign. So let's quickly go into e-sign experience. So now the agreement creator has the agreement approved, both by legal and by the VP of sales who owns the budget. Now she can simply go into the agreements app again, find that agreement, and then it's been already approved. She can simply essentially kind of enter the email address of the people she needs to send the agreement for signing, and then they would get the agreement in their email to sign. So here I simply go in there, open the agreement, again in Word, and then I simply type in the email address of the other party. I'll type myself as a first signer, and then I'm going to add the other party as a second signer. Simply type in the name. I don't have to essentially put any information about where the e-signature would go. That's all in the template. I just put in the email address of the people I need to send the document for signing. Once I'm done, simply push a button, and then document is going to go to the other party for signing. All right, so let's look at the quick experience on the other party, how they sign. Simply goes to Carlos for signing, and now Carlos can gets an email. They can open the email, and then they can sign in PDF. Document still gets signed in PDF. Everything is in PDF. The final signed documents is in PDF. But during the entire process, the document stays within the Microsoft 365 cloud. It never left. You see that I never kind of download the document, never attachments. All thing is in SharePoint. Document lives always in SharePoint in the entire process. Even during the signing with the external party, the document still lives within SharePoint. So the document is living in the security and compliance boundary of SharePoint. All right, perfect. Now, you can also get like good reports I talked about before, where you want to get insights into all your agreements, so you can get nice reports around how many agreements I have with this particular third-party client, or how many agreements I have of this type. You can get all these insights, and we'll keep adding more and more reports, because this is one area we think people get a lot of value, a lot of insight into all the agreements that they have in their company. And there's big kind of, challenges in this space, because people don't know where the agreements are, what their obligations, things like that. So this will help you get all the insights into all your agreements. All right, so this was pretty good overall so far, but you will ask a question, can it scale really? So well, let me bring in Mohit Chand from Microsoft Digital, and he's going to talk about how they are using this agreement solution for managing agreements at Microsoft. All right, go ahead, Mohit.
Thank you so much, Vijay. Thanks. Really good. This is cool, isn't it? And I really never thought I'll say the word cool for legal agreements, but this comes very close. Hi, my name is Mohit again, and I managed, amongst other things, the agreements platform, which we implemented at Microsoft, and we are actually going to talk about how we had a fantastic collaboration with Sesha, Vijay, and their team in actually implementing this within Microsoft. But before we get into the how part, just to give a perspective on the scale of things at Microsoft with respect to the agreements. So today, we have about 1.5 million agreements in the repository, and we actually add that number by 10% every year. So think about it. On lean days, we create roughly 300 new agreements, and on busy days like fiscal year end, that could go up to 2,000 even more per day. Pretty much everybody at Microsoft can create agreements like non-disclosure agreements or statement of work. So we have a user base of more than 200,000 people. In terms of legacy templates that Vijay was talking about, we do have 623 templates that these agreements actually get generated off. And those templates total have somewhere in the range of 10 to 15,000 clauses. So with that scale, we do obviously have a lot of challenges, pretty much what Vijay talked about earlier. So traditionally, these templates have been those static documents living on a SharePoint document library, and any user wanting to create an agreement will go to that library, search up the template, take that offline, do the edits, And they could edit not just the data placeholder, they could actually do edits to the clauses as well as a part of negotiations and discussions with the second party. They pass around the document in emails, so by the time they're done, there are probably 15 different copies of the document, God knows where else. And the approvals are in emails too. When they are ready to store it into the system or to do e-signature, that is when they bring that offline contract back into the system boundaries. Now, one of the biggest challenges with that is that as a user editing the terms, I might have added unnecessary risk or obligations for Microsoft. So every time it goes for a review, legal review process, the reviewer will have to spend considerable time looking at what changed, does it add unnecessary risk to us or not, so which means a lot of time and a lot of cost for us. Of course, the best way is to digitize all the templates and the contract creation process. But again, traditionally, in our experience, whenever we have tried to do that in some of the existing solutions, it has taken us somewhere in the vicinity of $300,000 to $500,000 engineering dollars and 3 to 6 months of time per contract type. And by that, I mean roughly 3 to 6 templates. So a lot of time, a lot of money. One of the other core issues that we've heard loud and clear from the ground is the traditional systems use web-embedded controls that allow people to make edits to the agreements, whereas the users love the native functionality. So the Word demo that Vijay was talking about is what people love doing. So with these challenges around time, cost, complexity and scale of Microsoft, and usability, we started working with Vijay, Sesha, and the team about a year ago, partnered together, not just from our expertise or the domain knowledge, or implementing those solutions in a large enterprise like Microsoft, but also collaborating on the design and solution pieces. So we picked up one use case internally and started implementing that. That was of non-disclosure agreements. We picked up NDAs for a couple of reasons. One, it is a healthy 15% of all volume that gets generated annually. And it's also the broadest user base in Microsoft. A lot of people sort of engage with suppliers for discussions, for proposals, and every time they do that, they have to go through this NDA process. And this first use case, it turned out really well for us. We pretty much used all the capabilities that Vijay was talking about earlier. The template digitization, although we didn't end up using the AI-driven one, but even the other one was actually very easy to use. It's mostly like a select and just enter a few sort of metadata values, and the template gets digitized in a couple of days. We are using the Word native authoring capabilities, and that's one thing our users absolutely love. The workflow configurations. Now, Vijay showed how we can configure the reviewers and the approvals, but we actually were able to take it one step further. We were able to build custom extensions very easily using the power of Power Platform to stitch into the workflows. One example is when I, as a user, go into authoring and I'm creating a new NDA for a supplier, and somebody else at Microsoft might have already entered an NDA with that supplier, so there's no need to create one. So as I enter the supplier information, we have a custom extension, Power Platform based, which actually kicks in and validates if an existing NDA is there for that same supplier, which is active. And if there is, we sort of flash a warning to the user, hey, it's not needed. So that's there, and then the configuration of the reviewers, approvers, e-signatures, all that is super easy. One of the best things, the most liked things is the AI deviation analysis, not just from saving the reviewer's time, as Vijay was talking about, but also as an author. When I am authoring the agreement and if I do fiddle with one of the snippets or clauses, I can get live feedback on how it deviates with the approved, centrally governed clauses. And not just that, what does that change mean in terms of added risk? So even before it gets to the reviewer, there's a first level of pass that the user can make the informed decision on. So this is the North Star that we started working on, the ability to digitize any contract type 3 to 6 days, 3 to 6 templates in less than 14 days. And we are really close to that. Really proud of the collaboration that we have had with the team and the success that we have had. And I know for a fact that the product is rolling out new features pretty much month over month. We are extremely excited about some of the new capabilities like that AI-based template decomposition that makes it really easy to go do this thing on scale. And also some of the other things like the agreement hub, the dashboard, and the Teams app. The users love being in the Microsoft ecosystem, and this is taking the experience right to where they are. So with that, I'll transfer it back to Vijay. Take us to the closure.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mohit. Thanks for the partnership.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. All right, so the closing here, well, with this whole solution, you can close your deals faster because you can build your agreements faster, less errors, consistent language across all your agreements, and you can have a central place for managing all your agreements. We are essentially continuously adding more features. We have right now in preview. So we just start a preview, and if you want to join the preview, you can please, we are welcome to join the preview. We are adding more and more features over time. As kind of get feedback from customers, we'll add more features over there. But I think in closing, I would say if you can give a big round of applause, if you like the whole solution, like the whole process, please give all of us a big round of applause. That was not loud enough. The next door should hear that. They could hear that. I could hear theirs clapping. So let's go one more round. Let's give a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you so much. And I know some of you may not be working in agreements, but people in your department may be working on that. So when you go back and somebody asks you, okay, what did you do at the conference? You say, hey, I learned about Copilot. I learned about securing compliance. I learned about our agreement solution using AI. You can talk to them. You can share with them. If they're interested in that, they can go to this URL and sign up for the preview. With that, thanks a lot. We are going to hang out for some time. If you have any questions, you'll be welcome to answer the questions. Thank you so much.